So today we're going to talk about the tech that teaches AI to see not just a single picture, but the entire movie. 3D convolutional neural networks. This is all about moving beyond flat, static images to really understand a world that has both depth and motion.
Okay, let's just dive right in. We're all pretty used to AI that can look at a photo and go, yep, that's a cat. But the real world isn't just one photo, is it? It's always moving. So how does an AI understand a sequence of events? How does it get the difference between a person just standing there and that same person waving hello? That's really the core problem we're going to
And this right here, this is the whole problem in a nutshell. A normal AI looks at this and just sees a bunch of separate, disconnected pictures. It sees the what, but it totally misses the how. It misses the movement, the flow, the actual action of walking. To really get what's going on, the AI can't just see the frames. It has to see the connections between them. It needs to see time.
So how in the world do we give AI this power to see in time and depth? Well, the answer is pretty cool. We add a third dimension to its vision. And the best way to get your head around this is with a really simple analogy that involves a scanner. This breaks it down perfectly. So think of your standard 2D CNN, the kind that finds cats and photos, as a basic flatbed scanner. It scans one page, right? It just goes left to right, top to bottom. That's it. A 3D CNN, on the other hand, is more like one of those big office scanners with a document feeder. It's not just scanning one page, it's chewing through the whole stack at once. It's moving left to right, top to bottom, and through the depth of that stack. So what is that stack of pages in the real world? Well, it could be the frames of a video, or it could be the individual slices from an MRI scan. And the part that does the reading, we call that a kernel. You can think of it as the AI's eyeball, its point of focus. As you can see, that 3D kernel, the orange cube, isn't just looking at a flat patch. It's looking at a whole volume of data, grabbing information from multiple frames all at once. And because it processes data this way, 3D CNNs get to learn something called spatiotemporal features. Okay, that's a mouthful, but all it really means is that the AI is learning about patterns that happen in both space and over time. This is how it can finally understand an action like running in a video, or how it can map out the entire three-dimensional shape of a tumor from a series of CT scans.
This all sounds pretty amazing, right? But of course, there's a catch. There's always a catch, isn't there? This incredible new ability comes with a very steep price tag. Adding that third dimension creates a massive new headache, something called the parameter explosion.
Okay, before we get into the explosion part, let's quickly talk about what parameters even are. Basically, they're all the little internal knobs and dials that a neural network gets to turn and adjust while it's learning. And the more parameters you have, the more complicated and the more computationally expensive the whole thing becomes. So let's put some numbers on this. First up, a normal 2D network layer. For a pretty typical setup, you're looking at, say, about 1,792 parameters. Okay, not a huge number, totally manageable. Now, watch what happens when we go 3D. The formula gets one extra ingredient, depth. And that one tiny change, boom, the number of parameters just explodes. For the exact same layer, we suddenly leap from under 2,000 to over 5,000. Just like that, a 3 times jump in complexity. And remember, that's from one single layer. And you can probably guess what happens when you start stacking these things. Yeah, see, neural networks are all about stacking these layers on top of each other. And that 3x problem, it just keeps stacking up. Look at this table. A pretty simple 3-layer network balloons from about 370,000 parameters to over 1.1 times million. The whole network is suddenly 3 times bigger, 3 times heavier. And this isn't just some abstract numbers problem. It has very real consequences. We're talking 3 times more number crunching, which means training takes 3 times longer. The model also needs way more data to learn properly, and you need bigger, fatter, more expensive hardware just to get it to run. So, yeah, for a while there, this whole parameter explosion thing made 3D CNNs kind of impractical for a lot of things. The solution wasn't just to throw more computers at the problem. The solution was to get smarter, to come up with completely new blueprints, what we call architectures, to tame all that complexity. And that's a great way to think about it, actually. It's like building a house. You don't just start stacking bricks and hope for the best, right? You need a blueprint, an architecture, that lays out how everything fits together and works efficiently. It's the exact same for these networks. So let's look at our first clever blueprint. It's called I3D, which stands for Inflated 3D Network. And the idea here is just genius. Instead of trying to build a massive 3D network from scratch, you take a really smart 2D network that's already an expert on images, and you inflate it into the third dimension.
So how does that even work? It literally takes the filters from the powerful 2D model and just copies and pastes their values across the new time dimension. It's like giving your brand new network a massive head start, a cheat sheet. This makes i3D fantastic for things like action recognition, especially if you don't have a gazillion videos to train with from scratch. Okay, next up we have the R2 plus 1D architecture. And if i3D's strategy was inflate, this one's is divide and conquer. It looks at that big, slow, expensive 3D process and says, nope, let's break that down into two smaller, much more efficient steps.
The core idea is to split the problem. It separates the what am I seeing from the how is it moving. First, a 2D filter figures out all the objects within each frame. Then, a second, much simpler 1D filter just looks at the motion across the frames. By splitting it up like this, you get pretty much the same awesome results, but with way fewer parameters. It's a real game changer for when you need both great performance and speed.
All right, our last one is a totally different kind of beast. This is the 3D UNet, and it is a precision specialist. It's not about classifying a whole video. Nope, this thing is designed to go in and label every single tiny piece of a 3D image down to the individual voxel, which is just a 3D pixel. And its distinctive U-shape? That's its secret weapon. See, the left side of the U is an encoder that shrinks the image down to understand the big picture, the context. The right side is a decoder that builds it back up, carefully putting all the precise details back in their place. And the magic ingredient is those skip connections that shoot information across from one side to the other. They make sure none of the fine-grained detail gets lost along the way. This is why it's the absolute king for tasks like medical imaging, finding the exact shape of a tumor in a scan. Okay, so we've seen the core technology, the huge challenge it created, and the clever architectures that make it all practical. So let's bring this all together by comparing the two big applications we've been talking about this whole time: analyzing videos versus analyzing medical scans. This table really lays it out perfectly. It's the same core tool, just used in two completely different worlds. For video analysis, that third dimension is time. The goal is to capture motion, and the big headache is modeling all that complex movement. But for a CT scan, the third dimension is real physical depth. The goal there is to capture the shape of tissues, and the biggest challenge is often just handling the huge memory required for those massive volumes. The output is totally different, running versus tumor present, but that underlying principle of learning from a 3D volume is exactly the same. When you boil it all down, what we've really done is give AI a whole new sense. It's no longer just looking at flat postcards of the world, it's finally watching the movie. It can perceive depth, motion, and change over time. This opens up an entirely new frontier for discovery, which leaves us with one big question. Now that AI can really see our world, what incredible challenges will it solve next?